What'd you say?
You didn't hear any of that?
No? Why?
Doesn't matter. Listen to this. This was posted by Lemon Drop as part of a thread on the Weatherfield weather vane.
What's that?
It says website for sad people by the looks of it. Because local matters matter. Very Partridge. There's a Weatherfield Yesterday section where people post old photos. There's one here of Weathy High.
Show me.
Hello and welcome to episode 147 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that, given the events of the week, Fizzy's rage at Tyrone's dalliance and his frankly ill-advised cancellation of a reconciliatory dinner date, can't help but worry about the contents of Fizzy's pie. I'm Gavin.
And I am really sorry, okay, I had to take a poo. It's...
What?
Really sorry about, the whole ship in the Suez Canal, all right? I was doing my job, had to take a poo. I'm only human. Gav. The life of a Suez Canal pilot, it's not easy. It's 13 hours. Just had to take one poo.
As someone who has followed you into the bathroom, I'm not entirely surprised by this development. That was a ship. That was a...
It's a ship that probably has your Mac on it. Or it's blocking the ship that's going to have your Mac on it.
My new Mac that I'm very excited about is potentially stuck
on a ship
somewhere in Egypt. Yeah. Oh well. Isn't it interesting that after like a year of coronavirus and people dying in their, literally in their millions, and the threats to the economy that, lots of people have been unemployed. Mm-hmm. It's been a disastrous tragedy for lots and lots of people. Mm-hmm. But the thing that's really threatening to bring down the economy now is a ship that's stuck in a canal.
Right.
It's a fairly big ship, though.
It's massive.
It's like is it a kilometre? Or it's
bigger than the Empire State.
It's bigger than the Empire State. It's stuck in a canal.
We've seen ships that big.
Yeah, go through
Sault Ste. Marie. The Soo Locks.
I wouldn't try and do a 3-point turn on one of them, which is what it looks like someone's tried to do.
Apparently there was...
Uh-oh.
Apparently they were going to run aground, or they were going to crash into something, and so...
There was a squirrel that ran in front of them.
Something like that.
An Egyptian squirrel.
And so the pilot had to turn in order to avoid disaster, like a really bad crash and losing cargo and crew. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. And it's a miracle that nobody died.
Right.
But still... Suez Canal pilots are notoriously awful because it's a monopoly. Mm-hmm. You go there, a crew of pilots come on for 13 hours, charge you exorbitant fees, and then kind of fall asleep at the wheel and sexually harass your female crew. So
that's in their job description.
Yes, in fact, it is.
When I sign up.
Oh, I was either going to make a crack on that, or it was going to be Cinnamon Toast Crunch Shrimp Tail Guy, but he got milkshake ducked, so I didn't even want to get into it.
What?
Also, I figured that...
Random Purple Monkey dishwasher words? I'm not sure what any of that... I caught Cinnamon Crunch and I caught shrimp. And then the rest of it was just noise.
And also, you have no idea who Topanga is, because you never watched Boy Meets World, so you wouldn't even be impressed by the fact that Cinnamon Toast Crunch Shrimp Tail Guy is married to the actress who played Topanga. who also supposedly said who was really racist on that show. So, do you know what a milkshake duck is?
Thanks for making it to the end of another episode. No, I have no idea. No idea.
See, and that's why I didn't use that one.
See, I'm not sure what the joke was at the start anyway. I'm not sure if the joke was that one of your shits has blocked the Suez Canal, or the fact that you were the one that was supposedly piloting it.
That I was piloting it and that I had to go to the bathroom, and that's what happened.
Okay.
I ran aground because I had to go to the bathroom.
Because I think my version might be funnier.
Oh, well. You don't know what a milkshake duck is, so...
I don't. Do you want to enlighten me?
A couple of years ago, the Twitter feed, Pixelated Boat, wrote a tweet that said, "Everyone's in love with milkshake duck, a cute little duck that drinks milkshakes." And then 5 minutes later, "We regret to inform you that milkshake duck is a racist." But I'm Tish. Duck is racist.
The duck is racist.
Yes. So ever since then, the term milkshake duck has referred to anybody or anything that gets like 5 seconds of fame, and then 5 minutes later it's revealed that they're really awful people in some way.
Okay.
And that's what happened with Cinnamon Toast Crunch Shrimp Tails guy. This guy supposedly found shrimp tails.
Oh, I saw that.
And
it wasn't though. It was just
and rat poo.
It was
and
crystallized
string.
sugar, wasn't it?
No, it doesn't look like crystallized sugar, because crystallized sugar doesn't crystallize into like
shrimp shapes, but
right, yeah. So who knows exactly what's going on with that? But it delighted everybody on Twitter. Everybody on Twitter and kind of on Facebook were talking about it forever, because his last name is Carp, which is kind of fish. And the actress who played Topanga on Boy Meets World, a beloved show in the Americas,
we're
her last
approaching
name,
minute 7 of you explaining a joke.
Her last name is Fischel.
Okay.
And so it was funny because there's lots of fish. And apparently he owns an art gallery that currently has a picture up painted by Jimmy Kimmel's daughter called Shrimp Fingered Man. So there's so many levels to it, and everybody thought all these levels were delightful. But then all of a sudden, a lot of women started tweeting about the fact that he was kind of an asshole and awful and emotionally and physically abused them when he was dating them back in the day. So
Jimmy Kimmel did?
No. Cinnamon Toast Crunch Shrimp Tail guy.
That sounds like a wheel of a time. So.
Yeah. So I'm glad I didn't go with that one, because it would have taken too long to explain.
Longer than, because the preamble is done. That's it. It's all been, I've understood like 13% of the preamble, which I think is something of a record. Oh, the preamble.
Yeah.
Because now we're going to preamble.
Sure.
Shall we do that?
Yeah.
Give me some of that crunchy Corrie news.
Helen Flanagan gave birth to a baby boy this week. The former Rosie Webster welcomed her third child, Charlie Scott Sinclair, on March 21st, which is my sister's birthday. Mazel tov to Helen and her partner, Scott Sinclair.
The soccer player,
yes.
Scott Sinclair. Yeah.
Yes. The football player,
yeah.
Scott Sinclair.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry, Britain.
Just wait until you hear Gav say gasoline and sidewalk.
Petrol.
And
sidewalk is sidewalk. And I think I say gas now.
I thought it was pavement.
What did I say?
You said sidewalk.
I say sidewalk.
Okay. I thought in the UK they called it the pavement.
Oh, they do, but I now say it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is the joke.
Yeah.
That you say American stuff now.
Well, I'm in America, so it makes
and you
life
are
slightly
technically
easier.
an American now.
I am.
Yeah. Well, not even technically, literally. You're legally an American.
American on purpose.
American on purpose, yes. What a time to become an American on purpose.
I've never been so confused. I really have.
People just aren't watching their soaps these days.
What?
Ratings are down for both EastEnders and Courier, as well as Emmerdale. Overall television watching is down. supposedly. So just not just your soaps, but overall television watching is down. Why? Because most people are now watching their shows on streaming services more than on actual television.
The trend has been bucked now. I think officially it's been threatening for years. I only ever watch live TV
when there's an insurrection on.
Right. I think that's the last time I watched live TV.
And even that, I mean, when the inauguration, I watched streaming, but that's because there was no television in my Airbnb. So I sat and watched it on my
I was too scared to watch that.
Computer. You watched it later after.
Oh, yeah, I watched it afterwards.
But I watched it live.
I needed to know that it
that went out without a hitch.
anything exploding. And
right.
Nobody got injured.
Right. Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah.
That statement makes absolute sense.
I was in a fairly good mood when I woke up this morning.
Sorry. Finally, Corey legend Johnny Briggs will be getting his own documentary on ITV next week. The tribute will air on Monday, March 29th. So they will detail
coming up.
His life and interview people that worked on the show with him and everything else. So that should be delightful watching.
Yep.
And that's Corey News.
That's Corey News. Fantastic.
Corey News.
No
shrimps involved.
Just determined for me to have an aneurysm here. And you're doing some good work, I have to say. Our mailbag, just one 5-star review that's been left on the iTunes from Constructed Screen Name from the Newport Screen Names, I think. They wrote, "Loved the show, Helen and Gavin, perfectly balanced humour and insight with a few fun segments thrown in. I look forward to it every week. Thank you so much for that."
Oh, you're welcome. I hope you enjoy all the shrimp tail commentary.
I expect that review to be edited following this episode. And now, this.
Welcome.
Welcome to what?
You were dancing over there to your own music. It's cute.
I finally got it. Welcome to Last Year Tonight with me, John Oliver. Just enough time to quickly talk about petrol station carnations. Any idea?
Somebody was going to give somebody petrol station carnations. You're just dancing on purpose now.
American and dancing on purpose. It's a twofer. Yeah, this was David winding up Nick about his potential Mother's Day present.
Oh, yeah.
I was Gavin.
Forgot Mother's Day was early in the UK.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I'm reminded actually of another tune that I've been working on because, we made the Corrie sitcom music. Well, I say we. I'm kind of apportioning some of the blame onto you.
Right. As I do to you all the time as well. It's just, it's a collaboration.
That's what you do. Right?
Yeah.
We're a collective we.
Yes. We are the royal we.
As opposed to the royal poo. So, another poo joke.
There you go. They just write themselves.
They really do. Yeah, the Corrie sitcom, Tim's Mum About the House. Mm-hmm. Since we did that, we've had no cause to use it again.
I know. I'm really disappointed in the show for
completely wasted hours of my life.
Well, I'm sure Yasmin and Tim's mum will come back up soon.
But in classic Corrie, there was a segment where Deirdre said the talk of the street. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's going to be the talk of the street, she said. And I took the sound clip of that and I put it next to the Gary one.
Yes, you did.
And then I put a drum and bass beat against it.
Sure you did. Meanwhile, we still don't have a vocab of the episode jingle for common language, but that's all right. It's fine.
Helen, I have to go where the muse takes me. And that was where it was taking me. Mistress Persephone was taking me down the put a drum and bass beat against
are you
the
going
Coronation
to,
Street theme tune.
Are you going to go through and find other characters who say talk of the street, but not together, and then mash them together so it sounds like they say talk of the street? and add
I
it?
honestly wasn't. I'm just waiting for other people to say it, and then I'm just going to add it to my little montage because that seems like far too much work. Anyway, yeah, you were fine.
I was fine.
This was characters were going through a phase of insisting that they were fine. Mm-hmm. You were interviewed by the New York Times.
I was. That was exciting.
A year ago. And in this shortened batch of storylines, it's Gemma's and to a lesser extent David's turn to insist that they're absolutely fine. But Bernie isn't buying it and so replaces a window, gets a chippy tea and gets 5 minutes in front of Dr. Gadass. Because I think Gemma was going through a
postpartum depression.
Shady Acres, because that was still a thing. Ken smuggles in Eccles, and despite having been for a walk that evening, the old timer takes a pee behind a plant in the hallway.
R.I.P. Eccles.
As does Eccles. Tell you, if you're looking for toilet humour,
we're the podcast for it.
Charles's reign of terror continues unabated. Ryan has an idea with regards to Tim's dad, and as a result we learn that Zidane is going on holiday. Then Zidane is getting married, but no one's invited. Then Alia and Yasmin are invited, and then Tim's dad is tagging along. Don't be expecting any best man duties there, Ryan.
Yeah.
Evelyn gives Claudia a second chance with better results with her hairdo, and this time Arthur has the good grace to turn up, and it was delightful. Still pissed off about that.
Yeah.
Because the Arthur thing didn't really amount to very much at all. David visits Clayton in jail, Nick visits Shona in hospital, and neither have much in the way of success, which drives David onto the sofa and into the arms of a former trafficked East European Sparkle Lounge nail technician.
Jeez, Alina really gets around, doesn't she? I totally forgot about the whole David thing.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they did it, but they were going to do it.
Yeah, they were close.
Because Seb walked in.
Right.
Just like Seb walked in. Anyway, our moment of the week was Evelyn and Arthur flirting, and our boring moment of the week was Charles running a Jackson Pollock workshop at Shady Acres. Remember, Ken was trying to do a Jackson Pollock with a paintbrush.
Oh, God.
And that was Coronation Street at the top of the street this time last year. Shall we dive in?
Yes, please. My dear.
My dear. Our first storyline this morning is no, I refuse to listen to this. La 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 la.
Oh, is this Tyrone and Fizz and
Correct.
Lena?
On Monday, Tyrone has just finished his breakfast and Fizz wants to meet up for lunch as she has something exciting to discuss with him. He's off to work where no doubt Kev is going to be deplorable about his upcoming wedding. Apparently he's digging his heels in for an REO Speedwagon tribute band. What, they're just going to play...
Sure.
I'm going to keep on loving you over and over again all night. Was there another REO Speedwagon song?
Yeah.
What? Don't look for your phone.
Well, I know there is. I just can't remember it.
Well, of course there is.
Off the top of my head. Hold on. Do 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 do. Take It on the Run.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, on the run. So you take it on the run.
No.
Really?
Yep.
Can't fight this feeling.
Maybe. It's not looking good.
You said Keep on Loving Me, right?
I believe I mentioned that was the only one, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
None of which we've ever heard of before.
Oh, Take It on the Run, I knew.
Anyway, Chesney comes round for Fizz to be excited about the Greek wedding thing at. He reveals the truth of the matter. Blokes don't give a fuck about this sort of thing so long as they don't have to organise anything. Meanwhile, Tyrone's at work, but looking long and light at the knicker factory and the wee Romanian inside it. Abby finds Alina's sweater and she says that she'll take it back to her, but Tyrone jumps in and says that he'll do it. He needs to follow up after last week's work anyway. Abby reckons that if Alina was a 20-stone bloke, Tyrone would be doing no such follow-up.
She's right.
She's got the mark of him. He takes it back to her and he says that they don't have to avoid each other because of what happened last week, but then he tells her that he really likes her. And she likes him too. And then in walks Seb, who sees the pair of them, and he immediately twigs that this is Alina's secret fancy man, and he practically pisses himself laughing. "What's wrong with me?" says an affronted Tyrone. "You're old," says Seb, "and you're married, and you have 2 kids. Tyrone denies everything. He's not married, and they're not sleeping together, but for some reason he ends up admitting to the kiss, which I think is a mistake, and Seb has heard enough and goes off in a huff to his room. It's an angry wank for Seb, I think. Meanwhile, Fizz is looking for Tyrone at the garage and lets it slip to Kev and Abby that she's booked their wedding behind Tyrone's back, and Kev looks a bit... Don't know if that was a great idea. Ty comes along and everyone hides, leaving Fizz to announce that she has a surprise for them. Is it a holiday? Ty asks.
And Kev's in the bathroom.
Sort of. We're going to Greece for a wedding. Whose? Asks Ty with a smile. Ours, says Fizz, and Tyrone's face falls off. Seeing this reaction, a despondent Fizz goes home.
You know why Kev goes to the bathroom, right? Because they're only allowed 4 people on screen at a time.
My answer was he needed a shit.
That too.
And now there's this kind of remarkable scene that happens at home with Fizz and Tyrone.
Which is fantastic, which is just, give me more of this, please. Mm-hmm. Because all of the drug dealers and car accidents and buildings falling and sinkholes in the world are useless if you don't have really good character-driven storylines.
Correct.
And really good actors being given really good lines. And this was just, as much as you feel for these characters, it was a breath of fresh air, because it's been a while since we've gotten something this good.
I hated it. And I'll let that shit just sit there for a while. I'll tell you why I hated it. I hated it because it made me care about this storyline. Because I hate this storyline.
Yes. And there is that. But I mean, that's what's so good about it, is it makes you care about a stupid fucking storyline. Mm-hmm. It makes it about something more than just a stupid putting Tyrone with Alina thing. It becomes about relationships and how things can go a little routine, and how do you deal with that, and how do you talk about it, and everything. And it became a bigger thing, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, it was really well done.
Yeah.
Apart from anything else, just the fact, I think I saw on Twitter, I think it was Jane Danson said that it was a 15-page 18-page scene. And it felt like it went on for maybe 8 minutes uninterrupted.
Yeah.
Just the one scene, no cutaways.
Yeah. And you don't get bored, and you don't say, oh, well, this is dragging. No, like every word is not, there's not a word wasted in the whole thing.
And I was speaking with Tim O'Mara, the director, on Twitter. And about the no rehearsal part of it, because there was no rehearsal. And they said that like they had a run through, which is kind of standard for this sort of scene, but the fact that there was no, they're basically filming it. It's like we don't have time to waste. They've absolutely fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
Let's go through it. So at home, Fizz is humiliated. She expected something from Tyrone. Excitement, maybe. Happiness, at least, after all this time. She needs to know what he's thinking and how he's feeling. He doesn't think that they're the greatest couple in the world right now. And she thinks it's difficult to have time for each other with everything that's going on, but it's not just her fault. And she still fancies him. But Tyrone remains silent. Then says that he thinks that they're stuck. They're treading water. There is no excitement. There is no happiness. She says she was happy until 10 minutes ago. But after his health scare, he thinks there should be more to life and there should be someone that he wakes up excited to see. She thinks that he's talking about Alina and her skin visibly crawls. After the yoga and the weird comments that she made and her taking the piss, now she feels stupid as well as humiliated. She calls him a pathetic, middle-aged bloke. She's half your age, and he points out that there's only a 15-year age gap. She says Alina wouldn't give him the time of day. That's where you're wrong.
Timbot 4000 says shit just got interesting.
She asks if they slept together and he insists not. It was just one kiss. Well, I hope you'll be happy with her in a shitty little flat, because that's all you'll be able to afford, she says. I wouldn't see me and the girls go without just for you to lord it up. The girls who are going to be so bitterly disappointed in Tyrone. Then someone younger and more handsome will come along and Alina will leave him a sad, lonely old man. And there's a knock at the door and he goes to answer it, saying that he'll sort it. That's a kind of brief summary of what was.
Right. Very deep.
Kind of an epic.
Very emotional.
Right.
And I feel like lots of people sitting at home watching this right now, because of the pandemic and everything, and because of being stuck at home with your spouse, which is arguably better than being stuck alone with nobody. But you get into routines. You things get dull.
Yep.
Things are not exciting. There's no mystery anymore because there's not a period of time where one of you leaves the house for long extended periods of time.
Right.
You run out of things to say. So I think this was really a gut punch to lots and lots of people watching, not necessarily people who have had opportunity to cheat on their spouses during the pandemic.
No, but it's a very relatable situation.
It's really relatable. And I think that's what makes it good, is that it's just oofed,
So it's Chesney at the door, nosy to see how things are going and offering to pick up the girls. Tyrone says that they're far from being okay at the moment, but after minimum prompting, admits that something is wrong and he kissed Alina. It's so obvious, says Ches, but is it worth ruining your life over? When he goes back into the room, Fizz is either left or is really good at hiding. I think she's left. Mm-hmm. So Ches's point of it being obvious I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the obvious reason why he's turning down the proposal or reacted in the way that he did to the proposal.
Right, yeah, because he's thinking about somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of sad and pathetic. And it's nice because Chesney says, because Tyrone says, thank you for picking up the girls. And he's like, I'm doing this for Fizz, not for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised Chesney doesn't just punch him in the face.
I have a little sympathy for Tyrone in all this.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
She kissed him. He didn't kiss her.
Well, he kissed her back.
Did he?
He wanted to.
I know that he wanted to, but I don't think he would have acted on it. She kind of took the initiative.
She's also significantly younger.
Just 15 years. That was interesting as well, because that meant that he'd done the math.
Yes. She's significantly younger. She is, a person who has been abused in her life, so is a bit more fragile and easily led and has issues of her own. He did not have to go in and sit next to her in Victoria Garden. He allowed it to happen. He could have put his foot down much sooner. They're both responsible for this. And I kind of hate the fact that Alina gets most of the finger pointing.
Oh, that was always going to happen,
well,
wasn't it?
Yes, but still.
Alina Seb has heard from his mum about Fizz's wedding plans, but it looks like it's not going to go ahead, and he wants to know if this is her doing. She grabs her jacket and heads out. She needs to know if Tyrone wants to be with her. Seb thinks this is a terrible idea because there's no direct line from Alina doing this to Seb getting his hole off of her.
Well, and also he's right. It is a terrible idea.
Oh, it's a terrible idea. Yeah. Meanwhile, Tyrone has found Fizz in Roy's rolls. She says that she's been doing some walking and some thinking. Me too, says Tyrone. He says that he's sorry and he wants her and Alina can go to Iyad, Romanian for hell. He wants her, the girls and his family. She says it'll be different now. It's going to take time for her to trust him again. When Fizz and Ty get to the front door, Tyrone fancies a brew, but Fizz just wants to go to bed. She goes inside, allowing Tyrone to see Alina approach, and he looks sad as he goes into the house, and she looks sad as she walks away. On Wednesday, Tyrone is overcompensating, but it's not working on Fizz. She's still very upset about the humiliation she suffered yesterday, and when Tyrone skips around the subject of whether she's going to confront Alina about it, Fizz says no, but makes sure to refer to Alina as his girlfriend, secret crush, fancy bit, which, let's face it, is partly what contributed to this mess in the first place. However, the next we see, Fizz bumps into Alina as soon as she steps outside, and she wants a word. "I've got beef," says Fizz. "Oh, pig's tits," says Alina. At the garage, Kev has noticed that Tyrone is quiet but can't help but remember how he embarrassed Fizz yesterday. Tyrone explains what happened with Alina and the reconciliation he and Fizz have agreed. Kev, who has been there and done that, but not exactly like that, advises caution and not to ignore what his heart wants, even when kids are involved. Nice advice there, Kev. Tyrone is determined, though. Alina was a mistake, he says. So Fizz and Alina have gone to Roy's Rolls, but not for a chat. Fizz is going to talk, Alina is going to listen. After all the kindness she showed Alina, this is how she gets repaid, by her trying to rip her family apart. Alina apologises, but Fizz doesn't care. Find someone else, find someone single, and if she tries it on again, she'll be wearing her own teeth round her neck or something. She sends a tearful Alina packing just as Kirk comes in, who assesses how the situation appears and recommends tea. Luckily, they're at Roy's Rolls, who have tea. I thought that was quite a good point to bring up.
Yeah.
About the kindness
right.
that they showed, which, let's face it, was out of a kind of societal politeness.
Right,
of, oh, somebody doesn't have anywhere to live, and I'm a polite person, and I'm kind of a good person at heart, and
right.
oh, well, you can stay here.
But let's remember that was Tyrone's doing. Tyrone is the one who offered in the first place. Alina would have never asked to stay at Tyrone and Fizz's on her own.
No.
It was Tyrone who said, you should stay with us.
Right.
In the beginning.
She then didn't let it drop, though. Once she had that offer, she didn't say, no, it's fine. I can go somewhere else.
No, because she was desperate. Mm-hmm. But she would have never thought of it, and she wouldn't have ever come back and kind of insisted if he hadn't offered first. So, and let's be fair, last week, Alina gave Ty the cold shoulder before the whole kiss thing because she said, I don't want to break up a family. I don't want to be the one responsible for breaking up a family.
She didn't want to hurt fees.
Right. Yeah. So she was trying to take a step back more than Ty was trying to take a step back.
The heart wants what the heart wants, though, and she saw those American t-shirts, and she needs herself a bit of that. So Fizz tells Kirk everything, which I'm not sure is wise. Fizz just never thought anyone else would look twice at Tyrone.
Yeah, see...
well, that's a little cruel.
Right, yeah, there's a bit in this that is just... Why would she think that? Why would she, it's like Fizz's complacency in the beginning and the mocking of Tyrone and everything, not to blame Fizz.
It didn't help, let's face it.
It didn't help. And her attitude still is kind of like that. Like, I didn't think anybody else would want him, so I thought our relationship was fine. It's safe because nobody else will ever want you. That's not really a healthy relationship, is it?
It's not great.
No.
And I think the part of that has an impact is it does force, because it's something that Tyrone is going to be annoyed at. And it is going to force him... He's going to internalize. Exactly. And to examine how he feels about himself, and if that's true. And if it's not true, then why isn't she appreciating this? And it's sent his mind down a path. Right. It doesn't necessarily have to go down. And it kind of sets a challenge for him. Well, I'll show her, I bet I could if I try. So he tried and he could. Yeah. See, this is why I am never complacent. I am never complacent because American women throw themselves at you because of your accent. They still do. We can't go anywhere without a waitress, touching, well, not anymore. Thank God for the pandemic keeping American women away from you. I'm more than just an accent. Well, I know that. I also make drum and bass songs using soap opera theme tunes. You know where to find me. Oi! So where did I get to? Yeah, so no one would look twice at Tyrone, but Alina's drop dead gorgeous, and here's Fizz with nothing going for her, which I don't think is true either. No. Kirk tries to cheer her up by telling her that she has hair like an Irish setter he once knew in the kennels. He tells her that she's lovely, and if Tyrone ever tries to shag any other European bombshells behind her back, you'll have Kirk to answer to. Right, yes. And it's hilarious because they have Kirk look around before complimenting Fizz to make sure that Beth isn't around. That was hilarious. That was very funny. I like that they have these little comedic touches throughout. Kind of an awful storyline. Alina's stomping by the garage on the way to the factory. Tyrone sees something is wrong and checks on her while Kev makes himself scarce. Why? Ty, don't do it. Don't do it. Why are you doing that? Just, have you not learned your lesson? Nobody's learned anything here. This is it. Alina is going to work. She's not trying to say hello to Ty. She's not trying to, strike a conversation with him.
she's making a beeline to work. He's the one who steps out of the garage and stops her and speaks to her after all of this has happened.
If I was
This
her,
is why I'm so angry that it's like, oh, it's all Alina's fault. It's not. Tyrone is just as culpable, if not more so.
If I was her, I'd be going round the block to get to work. I'd go the long way without having to walk past the garage if at all possible. You told him to, asks Alina, who then explains how Fizz has just metaphorically kicked the fuck out of her. Tyrone apologises, this wasn't meant to happen. Alina's pissed that he didn't warn her, that he doesn't care for her. He gets his tenties all muddled up as he tries to say he does, or he did. Just stay away from me, says Alina, who gets back to her stomping. Chesney goes to see Fizz at the furniture thing to offer his condolences. Fizz says that Ty wants to go out for dinner and have a chat, but she's still furious and just wants to spit in his dinner. She didn't see this coming, which proves how blind she was. He thinks it could have been worse and that they can get through this, but Fizz no longer knows if that's what she wants. Back at the factory, there doesn't seem to be anyone who doesn't work at the factory in the factory. Sally spots Kirk being mean to Alina and stuffing his pockets full of biscuits rather than let her have one. Come on, spill, she insists, using the problem shared is a problem halved protocol. So Ty and Fizz are at speed dial and Ty goes off to the bogs in a huff when Fizz makes a big deal of his what do you fancy question. And then Sally comes in and she's so simpering that Fizz immediately knows that Kirk's blabbed and she grabs her jacket and leaves. Back home, Tyrone is apologising again, wanting to know what he can do. She thinks that he's already done it. People are going to think she's a mug for taking him back and he's a mug for wanting to go back. She knows what she sees when she looks in the mirror and she knows it's pretty much the opposite of Alina. On Friday, Fizz is doing some ironing and Ty is getting ready for work. The mood seems to have lightened a little bit and they talk about going to a burger joint with the kids, or Tyrone wants to do that.
With curly fries and milkshakes. He really wants to immigrate to America, doesn't he?
He's talking about Steak and Shake, isn't he?
Yeah, pretty much.
But Fizz has already arranged for Roy to look after the kids so the two of them can have some alone time and they can chat. Belter, says Ty. And at the furniture thing, Ches is trying to cheer Fizz up by dressing up as Hannibal Lecter. Fizz is still... Do you know, I knew that line's coming up and I saw you taking a sip of coffee and I thought, this is going to be interesting. Helen has a little bit of coffee coming down her nose at the moment.
I hate you.
Fizz is still in a better mood and being pragmatic. These things happen. At least he didn't get his hole off her like he did off your missus, she says. She says it's all fine, and it's still fine when Tyrone texts to cancel their date because he has to work. It's all fine. Now this is a moment where I thought, Tyrone...
What are you doing, pal?
What is this?
Why does he not say to Kev, look, you stay late.
You
I
know
need to fix this.
what is
You know
happening
what's
here.
going on.
He can't
Because
suggest...
Kev wants Tyrone to break up with Fizz and get with Alina, let's be honest. Because Kev is all into the whole younger ladies thing.
Yeah.
Which Tyrone brings up. He's
Right.
like, and how old is Abby again?
Mm-hmm. And how old was Molly Dobbs? His Molly Dobbs?
Why does anybody think that anybody will successfully marry Kev? That's what I want to know.
And I'm going to use a strong word here. And the thing is, I don't need to. But with Tyrone being in the cunt books as firmly as he is with Fizz,
Right.
he tries to make it up, or he tries to do, what does a guy do to try and make it, well, let's go and have dinner and that kind of thing. To then cancel it.
Right.
Because of work.
Yeah.
That's kind of unforgivable, isn't it?
These are lots of little subtle things that make it obvious that this is no longer what Ty wants.
You think so?
Yeah.
Her mood has cooled a little when she takes some sandwiches round to Ty the garage with the promise of some pie later.
And no piccalilli.
No piccalilli because he made such a fuss about it last time. This is unusual when he's working late and he thinks that she's just checking on him. She says that she isn't, but would have cause to do if she was.
Is it though? Because we've seen her bring him sandwiches before.
That's for lunch.
Oh.
This is for dinner. So he says that he is working if that's what she was checking on. Good, she says, but I wasn't. And back home, he understands that what she was doing, but they need to trust each other. That's all well and good when the object of his desire is living across the street, she says. And then she brings out a pie from the oven that I thought might have Alina's head in it. It's a humble pie, she says. Tuck in. John Doe has the upper hand. And that's as far as we get with that this week. I don't know where they've left it. I don't know if it's any... It felt at the start of Friday that it was a bit better. And there was some kind of, perspective was being applied here, and maybe this isn't as bad as it could have been, and he still wants to be here, and we still want to be a family together, and all that sort of stuff. But it kind of ended it with, what they had does seem to be very, very
broken.
Damaged.
Yeah.
And I don't know
if there's any way back for them, which makes me really sad, because this is one of the stronger relationships on the street.
So we thought, yeah.
Yeah. And really, they're getting fewer and farther between the strong relationships on the street, because Nick and Leanne are kind of on the outs.
Yep.
Ed and Aggie are kind of on the outs.
Yeah.
Ish. Johnny's in jail.
Tim and Sally?
They're fine.
They're fine.
Gemma and Chesney are fine.
Gemma and Chesney, I think, are Fizz and Tyrone just a few years in the past, or a few years in the future, whichever way.
Right, with more kids.
They're kind of heading that way.
Yeah. I hope they hurry up and get married. I want
for
the
that
karaoke wedding.
wedding.
But again, it's a good storyline, because I think it's something that lots and lots of people can relate to. And those are the storylines. Those are the great character-driven storylines that I think are at the heart of Coronation Street, and really is something that the show really needs to bring back and lay off all of the stunts and crazy storylines and people with guns and stuff, and just focus on this, because this is what the creator of Coronation Street was after. An ordinary street with ordinary people.
Yeah, and this is what was delivering up until, fairly recently.
Yeah.
You look at classic Corrie, and it is, there's some dreadful storylines going on in classic Corrie, but they're all underpinned by character, and they're all underpinned by a kind of everydayness of it.
Dying by hairdryer and trams coming off rails and stuff.
So they can still do the kind of sensational storylines.
Yeah, they just they just don't need to be relying so heavily on them.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any gangsters in it at the moment in classic Corrie.
No.
Which they do seem to be relying on. There's always a gangster. At the moment, the baddie in classic Corrie is a guy who's pretended to be an airline pilot to Deirdre. That's what's going on. And she's just found out, and she's going to go to jail. She doesn't know it yet, but she's going to go to jail.
Why?
Credit card fraud. Credit card fraud and stuff. But yeah, I do hate that it's made me care about this storyline more than I did, because I don't think I've hated a storyline or the potential of a storyline more than this, because it didn't make sense.
No. But now that really anybody could have stood in for Alina. That it's more about kind of what happens when a relationship just kind of goes boring and routine, and one partner isn't really relying on the other partner, and they take one another for granted and stuff. Now that it's become a larger thing, and it's not just about Ty running around after younger tail.
Less about Alina.
Right.
That's where it's become interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Poor Alina, though, man.
Let's move on.
Remember when I was hoping that she and Michael would hook up?
You just try and match up everyone on this show.
I do.
Our next storyline this morning is running up that hill. Just such joy. On Monday, Michael is home from the hospital for a nap. He's exhausted. Ed, though, insists on trying to talk to him about that car that Ronnie promised to buy Michael and Grace, and maybe Ed should be the one that buys it. Michael doesn't give a fuck who buys it and goes to sleep on the couch. Ed comes home from lunch and Michael is still on the couch. He's overslept. He asks Ed for a ride to the hospital, but Ed tells him to slum it. He has his lunch to get. Michael mentions that Ed has been short with Uncle Ronnie recently, and Ed plays it down and tells him to accept Ronnie's car offer, and then caves and gives Michael a ride to the hospital after all. Scintillating stuff on Monday. On Friday, on the street, Ed and Ronnie hear from Michael that Glory is off the ventilator but is anemic. Michael goes off for a lie down, allowing Ronnie and Ed to have a word. Ronnie is worried it's because he's a sickle cell carrier. Ed rolls his eyes and tells his brother to get to fuck.
Yeah, because if Ronnie is a sickle cell carrier, Ed is a sickle cell carrier because they have the same parents. So they would have the same chromosomes and everything.
But Ronnie doesn't get to fuck and turns up to the house to further this theory that the problem with Glory is down to his genes. Ed points out...
Which are also Ed's genes.
...that Grace would have had tests when she was pregnant. Now please, would you get to fuck? Ronnie decides that Ed is just trying to conceal this all from Michael for the third time. Get to fuck. So Ronnie finally gets to fuck. And that's all that happens in that storyline this week.
Do you think Michael's going to find out about this?
Of course he is. I was only amazed that it didn't happen at the end of Friday. That when Ronnie and Ed are arguing in the house, that Michael didn't suddenly appear down the stairs and overhear the conversation.
The staircase of discovery. Yes.
There's a staircase of discovery in that house too?
There's one in every house.
Oh, what? There's only one staircase of discovery as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And
everybody's got a 2 up and 2 down,
yes? It follows Faye about. Yeah. Nothing much here. We've just kind of furthered it on a little bit. There's this kind of genetic thing that's dropped in that I don't think is really much of a muchness. Our next storyline after that is Lemon and On Monday, Cathy's in the cabin looking regretfully at her message about Steve stealing Oliver's fund money. And after a brief interruption from Brian, she starts pecking away at another message. Aggie is over at number 1 to revise with Amy for reasons. Lemon Drop has posted again, but this time they seem to be backtracking, saying that they could have got everything wrong and maybe Steve isn't trying to steal money from his dead kid's charity fund after all. Amy is determined to dox whoever it is. That then she and Addie have a lovely wee chat about social media and how Amy's screen time was up to 12.6 hours a day last week.
I want a spin-off show where Addie and Amy just go around solving mysteries.
I'm already thinking of the theme tune.
With, oh no, neither one of them have a dog anymore. Oh no, wait, no, where's Rufus?
Rufus? Who the fuck's Rufus?
Didn't Steve and Tracy have a dog named Rufus?
No, it's Rover.
Rover. I know it started with an R. Where has Rover been?
Rufus.
None of the dogs.
Are you thinking of the British comedian Rufus Hound?
No.
You really aren't.
I'm not, because I have no idea who that is.
There is a Rufus Hound. Of
course there is. I think somebody's got to have a famous dog named Rufus. But anyway, they need a van. Mm-hmm. They need a dog. Mm-hmm. So bring Rover back.
They need sandwiches.
And they need Scooby snacks.
Oh, with Jacob out the way, where they're going to get their Scooby snacks from? Smoke them if you got them, folks. Andy has done some digging and found other comments from Lemon Drop on other forums, one in particular on Weatherfield Weather Vane, where local matters matter. Very Partridge, says Addy. On a thread about urban foxes, Lemon Drop outs himself as a Weatherfield newsagent who regularly sees foxes in the early morning, and they've also posted about Weddy High. Amy is sure that this means that Lemon Drop is Brian, fueled with rage about the unpaid paper bill. She's got the MO and everything. Addy suggests confronting them in real life, but to Amy, this is real life. Out there is just pretend. She says.
And she's got this look on her face.
She's in the Matrix now. Brian and Cathy are coming back from lunch and catch a vandal in the act of spraying troll on the windows of the cabin. I've doxed yous, shouts Amy from the other side of the street. Now you know what it feels like when people turn on you. Brian is baffled, but Cathy quietly admits that she has the answers. So inside the cabin, she owns up to being Lemon Drop and their trolling and how she was pissed when she did it. She tried to delete the message, but people were agreeing with her and it just got worse. And everyone thinks it was him. Not sure how that works, but without a thought, Brian says that he'll take the blame and apologise to Steve and Tracy, and then that'll be the end of it. So he goes to number 1 and makes a heartfelt apology, promises to post a retraction and will donate to the charity fund. Amy and Tracy aren't impressed though, and Tracy will not rest until she's told every living soul what a nasty piece of shit he is. Oh. On Wednesday, Cathy goes into the cabin. It's been a quiet day and no prizes for guessing why. Brian reckons it'll blow over soon. They deal in convenience, and people always end up choosing what's quick over what's right, and Cathy isn't sure that that's any comfort. Later, Bernie comes in and advises that Tracy's been bad-mouthing the pair of them, and they'd better get themselves back out there if they want to save any long-lasting damage to their reputations. So Cathy and Brian decide to have their faces seen on the Rovers, but Jenny refuses to serve Brian, telling him that he's banned for hounding Steve and trying to destroy his reputation.
Banned.
You've supped your last pint in here, bucko. And later, Brian is removing some fresh graffiti from the cabin when Cathy spots Steve walking by, and she shouts an apology and asks him to call off Tracy. The gossip is making their lives a misery.
Call off your dog.
That was a bit misjudged. Steve tells her to bolt. It's not his fault that Brian's lies about his family have come back to bite them on the arse. But later in the cabin, Steve comes in and he's had a think and agrees to tell Tracy and Amy to back off. Cathy is about to come clean, but Brian cuts her off. There's no point, and it might make matters worse. This, he says, is a positive start.
Mm-hmm. Rufus was a dog on the Muppet Show.
You spent the entire time that I was going through that looking up Rufus.
No, I was listening.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What do you think was the funniest bit of everything that I just said there?
The Steve bit. Because he's a Muppet too.
The Steve bit. Well, thanks.
When I said call off your dogs.
Thanks for being so specific there. I really liked this week. I liked. I don't like the fact that Brian and Cathy are in anyone's shit books. I don't like that at all. Mm. But I loved the Addie and Amy together.
Oh yeah, seriously, more of that, please.
Right.
The Addie and Amy show is a show I would watch all the time.
They were great.
They were great.
I don't know why he was there though, but it doesn't matter.
Because they're friends. It's fine. Yeah, because
he's friends with Asha.
Yeah, so she's friends with Addie too. She has to be. They're kind of a package deal, aren't they? As most twins are.
I guess.
Still, I like it. They were funny together. Both of those young actors have great comedic timing. And putting them together was pretty genius. I like it. Because it could have gone, Amy could have done it on her own. Amy could have done it with Asha. Amy could have done it with Summer. Amy could have done it with Kelly, although Kelly already has her own storyline going on right now. Amy could have done it with Simon. But I think this package deal, the Amy and Asha or Amy and Addie show, I like it.
It
More
had to
of that.
be Addie for it to work for me, because not only is Addie intelligent to follow the breadcrumbs and to come up with the clues.
To look at what else Lemon Drop has posted.
Not only is he intelligent enough to do that, he's so chuffed in his own intelligence that he has to explain it.
Right.
And when he's explaining it and then realises that Amy's been listening to her music in her earbuds and hasn't heard any of it, he's so pissed off.
I feel for him because that happens to me all the time with you and with the children.
I do this at work all the time. I love explaining how like a clever bit of spreadsheet chicanery works. Nobody gives a shit. They just want to know what the results are. Right. And that's kind of where Amy is. She doesn't care how he got there. She just wants to know what the answer is.
Right. It's great.
Yeah, I really love that. I think though, in terms of the story, it feels like it's kind of wrapping up a little sharpish. And there's part of me that I think I would have liked to have seen Cathy go kind of more head on into this and become one of these keyboard warriors and keyboard trolls and stuff.
No, that would have been interesting.
Because that leads you down really dark paths.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting if Cathy was the one to do that.
Right. I think, it was just this knee-jerk reaction to Tracy being mean to her.
It was hanging out with Bernie and getting drunk.
Right. Yeah.
That's what really did it.
Right. Well, there was this knee-jerk reaction to Tracy being mean to her for no reason. And then, sitting with Bernie and, Bernie being a bad influence as usual, which she will continue to be in another storyline.
Yeah. She can't cook, it turns out.
Ha 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 ha! Woman burns
She's not the
bacon.
woman that can't cook.
News at 11. Well, she can cook. She just can't cook bacon.
Right. It's hilarious.
Which, to be fair, bacon is something that if you're not watching it,
You have to watch it.
It can go from fine to burnt in like 2 seconds. This is why I cook it in the oven.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
much
even.
prefer. Yeah, and the eggs is the same. But anyway, our next storyline today is Sean's pathetic Sean's pathetic pyramid scheme shenanigans.
Now, see, I'm beginning to like this storyline more because I like the whole. Again, they've put two characters together that you wouldn't expect to be together, and it makes both of them a little bit more likable for me.
I despise this. And I despise the characters that are involved in it.
Of course
And
you
I
do.
despise them a little more.
Of course you do.
On Monday then, Gemma goes round to ask Sean to cover a shift at the Rovers. It's the least that he can do after all that's happened, but he's a snooty shite about it and makes a big deal about moving onwards and upwards and meeting Ridian later to discuss next month's targets. The only target you've got is the middle of your forehead, says Gemma.
But
Zing!
tish.
And she leaves him to it. So Sean and Ridian meet in the Rovers. Ridian reveals some very aggressive targets for this month, but he says that he believes in Sean and no one else is hitting targets like this. Really? Sean talks about a city centre apartment that he has his eyes on, but it's out of his price range. Ridian thinks it could be his by the year end. Then I think he goes off for a piss. And while he's gone, Daisy moves in to see if Sean needs any help. She likes ripping off people.
I love that she just blatantly just says it.
You love that.
Yes, there are people who do love that. Not me. Don't look at me like that.
You love that Daisy did that.
Yes, I do. I think it's hilarious that she's so brutally honest about the fact that she loves ripping off people because she's been so coy about it. You know, we've known that she's kind of a snake in the grass here all along, but now she's just openly admitting it. And I think that's great. I like how sneaky and kind of evil she is. She's great in this.
Sean doesn't know why everyone thinks that they're ripping people off. That I think was quite funny because people continually say to him through the week, this is a scam, this is a rip-off, and it's like, it's not a scam, it's not a rip-off. And it seems like he believes it, even though
he needs to believe it.
It is a scam.
Yeah, he needs to believe that he's not ripping people off.
Later, Sean is wearing two face masks as he compliments Abby, telling her that she looks like a young Princess Di. Do you want a smack? She says.
That was hilarious. I like that whole thing with that.
He introduces her to Double Glammy, but she knows it's a scam and she only has one lipstick and she only changes it when it starts to smell.
Right.
The
She's
lipstick
like me.
start to smell?
Yes.
What did it smell of? Feet?
No, that's just this room.
That's just my feet. He explains to Daisy about the seminar that he's running on his own now that Ridian is double booked, and Daisy offers to help for a cut. And on Wednesday, Sean meets up with Daisy in Roy's Rolls and mentions how all this is for Dylan. She's curious to know if he was a turkey-based effort or a more traditional outcome. And they mention something about not getting to the duty-free, which I didn't understand. And then they're off to the seminar to rip off as many people as possible.
Right. Then that was funny too, because I'm sure there are people who are kind of newer to the show who wonder about Dylan's conception.
Are you talking about yourself here?
And, and the fact that Daisy is so blunt in asking, exactly, how this could have possibly happened.
Yeah.
Right. So
what's the duty free got to do with in the airport?
So what she's saying was, were you just a tourist? Meaning, were you just a tourist into heterosexual land?
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. So, and he's I made it to the airport. So he began to get it on with a woman.
Right.
But he didn't make it past the duty free. So he didn't.
Oh, did he get past security then? I guess he did. If we're continuing this metaphor.
Right. So it was not a full trip
Right.
But he got far enough.
He checked his bags, but ultimately didn't go on the plane.
Correct.
That seems...
Which is just a really, really, really roundabout way of saying...
That seems impossibly rude. We don't get to see any of the seminar, which I was really disappointed in. But
well, of course we can't see it.
Of course we're not.
Of course we can't.
I was actually kind of looking forward to it because I wanted to see how bad Sean would be at it. But it looks like it was successful when Daisy and Sean reconvene in the Rovers later. Ridian comes in and he's so impressed that some of his facial hair has fallen off. He reckons Sean needs digs befitting his high flyer status and gives him the details of some place fancy, claiming that he knows the owner. Drop Ridian's name and he'll get a rental deal sweeter than Builder's tea. Later.
Do builders drink their tea really sweet?
Oh, yeah. Just the spoons can stand up in it. Later, Eileen comes in just as Daisy and Sean are congratulating themselves on how many stupid fucking people there are in the world and how easy it is to sign them up. She's disgusted. She was worried that Double Glammy was going to rip him off, but he's just as bad. The sooner that he moves out, the better. Back home, Sean tells Eileen that he's doing what she wants and looking for somewhere else. She'd rather that he'd wash his hands of this scam, but he still refuses to accept that that's what it is, and he's determined to make it work. She backtracks and tells him that this will always be his home until she sells it and moves abroad.
Right, and he makes brief mention of being afraid of being homeless again and waking up in a tent or on a sidewalk.
Yep.
No mention of Carol, though. My poor friend Carol.
You totally beat me to it. I think the pricks that write this show, no offence, know that there are hundreds of people, potentially thousands of people that are waiting for Carol to get a mention.
Carol?
And they keep on dangling it. Oh, here he goes. He's talking about his homelessness again. Surely he's going to mention Carol this time. Nah, not a chance. Mm. On Friday, as ever, instead of working, Todd the Prick, this becomes something else. Mm-hmm. As ever, instead of working, Todd the Prick is skulking around Paul, listening into his conversation with Summer about Kelly the Chin. When Paul goes, he moves in and he chats with her about Billy and his exes, like the Coronation Street is just littered with Billy's exes.
Well, there's 3 of them.
Right.
That's more than... Don't get me started. Don't get me started on the ratio of gay men to lesbians on the street, because...
You're just impossible to please.
I am.
Summer reckons Paul wants back there for more, but Todd is surprised to hear this and thinks Billy has moved on. So he follows Paul into Roy's Rolls, where Bernie is a woman who can't cook again. Bernie has mentioned about going clubbing with Paul later, seeing as Paul has some time off. Clubbing with your mum? Oof. And so Todd asks him... You stop it. Helen is dapping for some reason because it's 2017 again.
I'm sitting down so I can't floss. That's not...
It's kind of flossing. I won't explain that. So he fall. So Todd asks him out instead, as they're both pals of Billy, and it would help Summer to see them getting on, and he even apologises for being a bit of a prick earlier. Todd reckons that he has some time off due to him. Really? So he can take the afternoon off as well. The prick is never at work.
No.
So they meet up at the Rovers a little later, and although Paul isn't sure that he's in the mood for any of this shite, he and Todd leave just as a masked and confused Billy comes in to see them head out the Rovers' back passage.
But not like that.
Thank you very much. Predictably, in discussion with Eileen, it becomes clear that Billy is jealous that 2 of his exes are suddenly besties based on watching them exit a pub together. Mm. And I think Todd has taken Paul to Ray Weinstein's hotel for a drink, and they agree the protocol of the conversation. No talking about Billy, no talking about Sean's sofa shopping for his poxy new flat that he's moving into next week. And doesn't that sound a bit too quick off the mark? Mm-hmm. When Paul goes for a wee-wee, another bloke, Jimmy, shows up that Todd had agreed to meet, and he deftly manoeuvres it to set this new guy up with Paul instead.
No, see, then that's...
No, what happened? I kind of lost interest a little bit.
So Todd was on whatever the show's equivalent of Tinder is.
Grindr.
Grindr, yes.
I think they just call it Grindr.
Do they?
I think so.
And he had that guy's picture up and swipes it really quick and goes back to the couch thing when Paul says, "What are you looking at on your phone?"
Oh, I
So
missed
Paul
that.
has set this up.
Paul
just
has set
now.
this up.
Not Paul, Todd.
See, now you're confusing me even more by getting the names mixed up.
I know.
What's Rufus doing at this point?
Barking. It's Steve the Muppet.
Okay.
Okay.
The other bloke is confused, but because they're on
Margarita time.
Margarita, yeah, he's game. And when Paul comes back, Jimmy likes what he sees, while Paul wonders exactly what the fuck was going on when he went for a shit.
He takes a very long time to pee, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I thought maybe he just kind of ducked out.
I thought that had happened as well.
And so Todd is going to have to bang Jimmy.
I thought it was going to backfire, but not like that. Back at the Rovers, Billy's insisting that he doesn't have romantic feelings for Paul anymore, but Eileen and Sean aren't buying it, so Billy has to change the subject and ask Sean questions about his furniture. Eileen shoots herself in the head. Back at the
I love the fact that they're winding Billy up like that. That's funny.
Back at the bar, Aaron Sorkin and Quentin Tarantino get a co-writer credit as they have a fabulous homosexual rapid-fire conversation dripping with innuendo, all to punctuate the point that Paul is probably going to get his hold of Jimmy later.
Right. And they all like queer as folk and name drop Russell T Davies.
Todd manufactures a problem that needs his attention at home, so he leaves Paul and Jimmy to it. And it goes back to Rovers, where Billy is curious where Paul is. He's in town. Is he on his own? No. Who's
None of your fucking business, Billy. You're the one who broke up with him.
Who's he with?
Asshole.
Take a chill pill, Bill, says Todd. Which again has Tarantino written all over it. What do you think I am? Track and trace? No, we all think you're a prick. Billy worried that Todd was after Paul for himself, and this offends Todd to the point that he goes home for some moussaka.
And garlic toast.
But he's not really upset about it at all, because this is his long game again.
Right, yeah.
You know how Todd likes a long game?
Right, a really long game.
That rarely works,
yeah.
but eventually kind of works.
But see, this is going to backfire because he's making Billy jealous and making Billy realize that he still loves Paul.
Because he doesn't
That's
want
all
to
he's
make
doing.
a play for Billy. He wants Billy to make a play for him.
him. Yeah. And that's not going to happen.
Why?
I think Billy is kind of happy just being single at the moment.
No,
Why would
Billy's very jealous.
Yes, I know. He's very jealous. But, you know, after he broke up with Paul, he wasn't like, right, that's it. Where can I get my hole now? You know, because that's really not... Billy's really busy with his new job and raising Summer. So...
Being sanctimonious.
Yeah. I love how the whole, like, teasing turns from Billy to Eileen and her moussaka.
Right. Which is kind of representative of how those sort of conversations in the pub go.
Right,
You're
yeah.
piling on somebody, and then they...
And then all of a sudden it turns.
And suddenly you're the one that's getting... Oh, and
Wait a second.
the shoes on the other foot here, and this doesn't feel quite so happy.
No.
And comfortable now.
No, because we want to talk about Sean and his couch arms.
Right. That he's taking photographs of.
Well, no, he's got them bookmarked
Yeah.
on whatever the equivalent of Wayfair is over there.
Probably Grinder again.
Couch grinder. Both of those couches looked hideous.
I don't know.
I don't think
Paul
Paul's
getting-
really going to get his hole.
I think it might, but I don't think it's going to be anything that he's...
No.
He doesn't seem that ready, and he doesn't seem that interested. Although the Jimmy character is quite charming.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it does seem to be quite into Paul.
Yeah. Although he seemed kind of into Todd as well. I think he just wants to get
He
his
just
hole
wanted to get his hole, right.
during a pandemic.
I think, what was the bartender's name? Neil? Was it Neil?
Yeah, I think it was Neil.
I think if Paul wasn't interested, then Jimmy and Neil would have been getting it on behind the bar later on.
Yeah.
Because that's how those things work. Our penultimate storyline today is Kelly the Chin.
Yay!
On the Wednesday. This is
just
do you know what?
delightful.
I really enjoyed this as well.
Yes, me too.
Kelly the Chin is hanging around outside the law office for Imran. She's got to out of her mind in the foster home, and she needs to talk to him, so they arrange to meet in Roy's Rolls later. And he lets her buy him tea.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a prick move right there, isn't it? You're a lawyer. She's a school kid. Buy her tea.
She offered.
At the cafe, Kelly paints a very lonely picture, and she brings up the topic of Imran and Toyah becoming her foster parents again. He explains again that it's not that simple. The authorities have to make the decision, and her dad is still wanted for questioning on his sister's death. That's not a no then, says a hopeful Kelly the Chin.
So what you're saying is there's a chance.
And then
That's my Jim Carrey impersonation.
It's
dreadful.
For the record, it's quite close to your Jimmy Stewart.
It is not.
And Imran
not
looks
even close.
A little exasperated, but maybe he's warming up to her a little bit. On Friday, Imran is hiding from Kelly the Chin.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. He's like plastered against the side of the building, and Toyah's like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
So he has to explain to Toyah what the fuck he's doing. And when he explains this, Toyah has got her therapist hat on, and she calls this a classic case of transference. And you know that she's trained in the field when she uses the word classic.
Yeah.
After everything that happened with Rick the Chin, Toyah thinks this is a bad idea, and Imran agrees, except he clearly doesn't. And later, Kelly the Chin pounces on Imran as he leaves the law office. "Hey mate, gonna foster us." She sees Toyah and rushes over to introduce herself and the situation. "We'd love to help," says Toyah, ... But Kelly jumps in and pretends that this means a yes, and then proceeds to take the piss out of Imran when he shits himself a little bit. When she's gone, Toyah has taken an instant like to Kelly.
Yes.
And is now obviously on board.
Yeah.
Except they agree it would never work.
Right.
No, never.
Yeah. No.
No chance.
They'd never allow it.
Later still, Imran, who doesn't work at the factory, turns up at the factory to talk to Toyah about Kelly. And Toyah quite hilariously points out that she doesn't show up at the court to ask if he wants marinated tofu for dinner. And couldn't this have waited until I got home?
Right, yeah.
He ignores this and plows on. "Can we foster her? Can we?
Like
Can we please?" Toyah's agreeable, but thinks the Rick the Chin thing is going to shit all over the idea. "Call social services," she says. "If they're happy, I'm happy." So Imran goes to Roy's Rolls, where it looks like he gets prepositioned by Bernie, or propositioned. Preposition is something completely different.
Right.
He meets up with Kelly and tells her that the social services have agreed to some assessment sessions. It's early days, but it's a start. And Kelly is very, very, very appreciative of this development.
Yes.
What a lovely storyline.
Yes. Kelly has really grown on us as well. Because at the beginning, we didn't like her because she was the one who shared those photos of Asha on social medias.
She was a mean girl.
Yes.
Just a mean girl.
Right, yeah.
And she was two-faced.
Right. And she was very two-dimensional. You know, she had a trope and she stuck to it.
And she was really just someone for Gary to be creepy with. Right.
Yeah. And, you know, over time, she's really developed into her own as a multidimensional character who has layers, like an onion, like a Shrek,
wants
like an
and
ogre.
needs. It's all about wants and needs.
Right, yeah. And we come to relate to her and understand that, you know, she is just a kid.
Yep.
She's just a
15.
kid who's been through hell.
Fond of the E, but we'll forgive her that.
Right. And even that, I'm
Don't
sure
do drugs,
she's just
bluster. It's
right.
Teenage bluster.
Yeah. Her dad was a loan shark who's disappeared. She doesn't know he's dead. Nobody knows he's dead.
No.
Well, 2 people.
Gary, yeah.
3 people know he's dead.
Gary, Sarah, and
Adam.
Yeah, Adam knows, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah told him, remember?
Right.
When he almost died. When he had that near-death experience. And
Anyway.
Sarah's like, anyway. Her mother is just the worst and is taken off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so... And in the beginning, she was kind of presented as kind of this upper-class private school snooty booty.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's become kind of... Now we've realized that that's really not who she is and everything. And the blinds have come off.
Vulnerability to her.
Right.
That makes her more interesting.
And I'm quite looking forward to her living with Imran and Toyah and what that relationship is going to look like.
It's Toyah's reaction to having her be just come up and introduce herself.
Right.
This is me, this is my situation sort of thing. And then when she goes away, Toyah's reaction of,
okay, yeah, I like her.
I really like her.
Yeah.
I've absolutely adored that.
Yeah.
It was such good fun. It was a nice little moment.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Imran is just, he's so cute.
Him
I mean, he's
hiding.
cute anyway.
Him hiding was brilliant.
Let's be honest. In fact, did you see there were these really funny, like Mother's Day cards, Coronation Street themed Mother's Day cards, and one of them was, "Dear Mum, I'm sorry Dad isn't as handsome as Imran."
He's a handsome man.
He is handsome. And he likes dogs. Anyway.
Have we done gushing
Well,
over
Imran doesn't, Charlie
DeMello,
does.
right?
Yes, okay. Moving on.
Our final storyline this morning is Team Simon. On Monday, Leanne is working from home again as Simon prepares to go off for college, taking the time to refresh her memories, and Natasha is back on the scene. He wonders if Nick will be moving back, and Leanne says not for a couple of weeks, and when Simon asks why, she reverts to form and bites his head off. Natasha, who doesn't work at the factory, turns up at the factory to get Nick's confirmation that he'll be at Sam's Science Whatever later this afternoon, and they have a joke about novelty pyjamas that she got him. She leaves, and then immediately Leanne, who doesn't work at the factory, comes into the factory with her argument boots on, wanting to know what Natasha wanted, what the deal with the fucking pyjamas is, and how cosy that you're still sleeping under the same roof with Natasha.
Yeah, it's your own fault, Leanne.
Right. She assumed that he'd move in with Gail, which was one of the options that I cited last week. He points out that he wants to move home, and she's the one putting a halt to that. She's ready to continue this interruption to the working day when her phone goes and whatever it is, it's urgent, and safety isn't paramount, so can she borrow Nick's car? Nick goes to the bistro for a coffee. Maybe they do frappuccinos, I don't know. Natasha is there having lunch, and they chat about the conversation that he had with Leanne. It'll be back to normal soon, says Natasha. And Nick nods and goes to get his coffee, while Natasha looks on in the way we sort of predicted would happen last week.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Leanne is doing another drugs drop in Nick's awful car. She briefly counts the money in an envelope when there's a knock at the window, and it's a copper. But Leanne's white and not pregnant and dressed well, so she's probably going to be fine.
Yeah.
And indeed she is. The copper is just asking about some carjackings that have happened recently, and does she know anything about that?
Yeah, has she seen anything suspicious while she's sitting in this car park alone?
Counting money.
Looking suspicious.
Right. Leanne pleads assistance, saying that she's not from this part of town, so he gives her directions back to the motorway, and the flustered Leanne stalls as she's trying to leave the car park. Have you driven this car before? The copper asks. No, I've just nicked it, says Leanne. Have a wonderful day, says the policeman, and Leanne is allowed about her day. Harvey is at Leanne's, very impressed with the place and her performance so far, but she needs a uniform to make her less conspicuous. Like a postie.
Mm-hmm.
She wants out, but he tells her that if she goes to the police, she'll get done for supplying along with Simon. Leanne rolls her eyes, knowing that she's fucked, while Harvey has a look around. He really is very taken with the flat.
Mm-hmm. I think he's a little bit taken with Leanne as well.
Mm-hmm. And then it looks like someone's nicked one of Aggie's nurse uniforms off the washing line. And Leanne, who is exactly the same size as Aggie, is the culprit. For some reason.
It looks like she bought it.
No, there was a scene where it got stolen off the washing line.
I must have missed that.
And she admitted to it. She stole Aggie's nurse uniform.
Why is Aggie's nurse uniform hanging on a line when Aggie is not there?
Maybe she has some
and she hasn't
old laundry.
What?
Anyway.
That doesn't make any sense.
That's what happens. For some reason, Sam's science thing has taken place near Coronation Street, and Sam, Nick and Natasha all have some fairly poor space-related chat on the street outside Leanne's window as they make plans for the weekend. And so when Leanne looks out, she sees this happy little family all standing 6 feet away from each other in the middle of the road. On Wednesday, Leanne leaves an apologetic message with Nick and then gets a call from Harvey on her burner phone. He has another delivery for her and he hangs up on her when she starts to complain. I thought that was pretty funny though.
Yeah.
He's just doesn't give a shit.
No, he doesn't. He really doesn't.
Meanwhile, Nick is on the phone to Natasha, who's playing with her hair, when she says that she's downloaded Rocky 5 and has got some hot dogs and peaches if he fancies a private screening later on.
Hot dogs and popcorn.
Yeah, no, but it's funny if I say peaches.
Dirty mind.
He says sure, then quickly hangs up and mentions
hot dogs,
to
not
Toyah
eggplant.
how worried he is about him and Leanne ever getting back together again, and she promises to have a word later. She has some bridges to mend herself. Mm-hmm. When Leanne gets home, Harvey's shiny jacket is already there. Somehow. How did he get anyway?
Seriously, there's a sign on the door downstairs. There's a sign on the door that says, "Don't let people in who don't live here." Yeah. There's a sign on the door, and yet people keep doing it.
But he's actually in the flat.
Yeah.
Did she let him into the flat? It seemed like he was already there.
Yeah. It's like he has a key or something.
He throws
is a drug dealer, and so is good at these sort of things.
He throws her the drugs, quite impressed that she's going to be a nurse, and it looks like he's going to give her a ride to the drop-off point or something. But no, she's getting on the tram, I think. She wants this to be the last time. No chance, says Harvey Shiny Jacket. Not unless you want to be a nurse for real and spoon-feed Simon after I'm finished with him. It's not the best threat in the world, but it does the job. As they leave the flat, Leanne is covered up so it's not obvious she's wearing Aggie's uniform, but Toyah sees her and Harvey leave together. Mm-hmm. So Toyah meets up with Imran in the bistro and has no time to hear his stories of bench pressing with Craig. It's good to know that he and Craig are still attempting to work out. Mm-hmm. She explains about seeing Leanne with a guy that she didn't want to be seen with, and Imran isn't convinced. He doesn't want to be seen with half his clients. It doesn't mean that he's getting his whole of any of them. He advises Toyah to stay out of this. Messengers, he says, have short shelf lives. Later, Leanne is back via tram from the drop, and another passenger chases after her, thinking that she really is a nurse, and yet another passenger has collapsed and isn't breathing. Leanne runs away. Call an ambulance, she shouts. At the factory, Nick follows up with Toyah, who explains that she didn't have a word with Leanne because she looked busy talking to some bloke that she's never seen before, but she's sure it's not anything to be worried about. Right, says Nick. He looks like he'll have a job concentrating on
Good job, Toyah.
on his trend forecast binder later that's on his desk.
Good job, Toyah, in not being the messenger.
Right, I didn't see anything that was suspicious. I just saw...
No, I just got held up, or she wasn't home when I went over.
Yep. Right.
So many ways to not be the messenger.
Natasha and Sam were in the community garden when Uncle David comes by. He calls Sam Stato, which is hilarious. And there was a character in the Fantasy Football League called Stato who does look a little bit like an older version of Sam. Sam doesn't get it. Natasha
and Sam very cutely asks Uncle David if he needs anything from the shops. He says, beer and ciggies.
Yep, and this is hilarious.
Right, yeah. It sounds like, okay. And he's like, no, I'm kidding.
Natasha enthuses to David
cute,
about how lovely it's been for Sam having Nick and her under the same roof. And this seems to worry David, that it looks like Natasha's starting to think of this arrangement as permanent. She insists not, and he scratches his beard, which means that he doesn't believe her. At the flat, Leanne has learned that the bloke at the tram station has died. Harvey arrives and makes himself at home, taking off his shiny jacket as she tells him that she's out because the bloke at the tram station died. He's understandably nonplussed by this information.
I still don't understand why she needs to dress up like a nurse in order to do these jobs.
To be more inconspicuous, and nobody's going to think a nurse is a drug dealer, is the thinking.
All nurses are drug dealers. I mean, not all nurses are drug dealers. I didn't mean to say it that way. But obviously, nobody on this show has watched Nurse Jackie ever.
Or even heard of it. Then Nick calls. He's coming up, so Leanne tells Harvey to hide.
Instead of... what? Nick's right at the door?
So he does hide, but he doesn't take his jacket. And because it's so shiny, Nick's eyes are immediately drawn to it. That's not Simon's, he says. She tells him it's not what he thinks and that he needs to go right now. Really,
right.
He asks.
Instead of saying, no, it is Simon's. I just bought it for him. He likes shiny things now. Mm-hmm. Goodbye.
Really? Asks Nick. And then he does leave, but not without the makings of a really fat tear in his eye. What a drip, says Harvey when he comes out of hiding. Then Natasha, who doesn't work at the factory, comes bursting into the factory. And to her credit...
Harvey has a thing for Leanne. Mm-hmm. That's why he won't let her go.
Natasha bursts into the factory, and to her credit, Toyah at least tries to stop her.
Right.
I like how Toyah's been the only one that's security conscious at the factory. She needs to see Nick right now, rather than waiting a couple hours and talking about this at home. She needs to ask him what the deal is between him and her. Nothing, he says. No worries, she says, but you should probably move out.
I like also that Toyah is in the background for that whole scene.
Right.
But she's not... She doesn't look like she's listening in or watching this happen. She's just doing her work in the background.
Later, Leanne gets a text with an address again, and slowly she grabs her jacket, but she looks like she may be contemplating something other than following orders. And indeed, that's what she's doing. She goes to the cop shop and grasses Harvey the fuck up. Nick's pissed and goes to see David. What can I do for you, asks David, and Nick explains about his impending homelessness, and David thinks this might be his doing, but Nick says it's fine.
Ben Price is not very good at acting drunk, is he? It was hilarious. It was like, it was almost Ryan bad.
It wasn't Ryan bad.
I said almost.
He's more to worry about, like the bloke that Leanne was hiding in the flat, he says. At the cop shop, Leanne has been interviewed by DS Beardy. He's read her statement and has some questions. Leanne doesn't understand why they don't just go after Harvey now that she's told them everything. Well, it's a kind of bigger deal than that, says DS Beardy, and he arrests Leanne for being a drugs mule and for impersonating Aggie.
See, I thought of him as DS Pretty Eyes.
Oh.
He's got very pretty eyes.
On Friday, Leanne has spent a night in cells and put Simon off the scent by using her phone call to leave a message saying that she's got an early doctor's appointment or something, and then she's going shopping. Later, Leanne's getting interviewed about Simon and Jacob and Harvey, and so she begins with Oliver's death and moves eventually to how Simon wasn't a dealer, just a courier, and how they didn't report any of this because they were terrified of the ramifications. Meanwhile, Simon, who doesn't work at the factory, is at the factory asking Nick if he's heard from Leanne. She says that she's at the doctor, but Simon is suspicious and she's not answering her phone. He explains about how Leanne hasn't been coping and how she lied about going to France, and Nick is strangely not all that interested in this.
Well, he's kind of interested.
Later, the copper isn't sure that he believes that Simon wasn't dealing, but they've been following this gang for some time and just need some more evidence to shut them down. And that's where Leanne comes in, and all of a sudden, this begins to sound like the start of a James Belushi movie. A James Belushi movie. Co-starring Pauly Shore and Rob Schneider and lots of other friends of Adam Sandler. If there was another way without breaking protocols, they'd do it. But the burner phone can't be linked to Harvey, and they can't stake out their addresses or anything like that because of the plot. Either she helps or she gets charged right now.
And they drag Simon in.
Back at the flat, Nick is sorry that Simon has had to deal with this on his own, but there was that bloke yesterday. What bloke? There was no bloke, Simon is sure. Nick laughs as he cries and pretends it's not important that he suspects Leanne is getting her hole off of someone else, but Simon seems to twig that this is something more important than Nick's hole. Simon insists that Leanne still loves Nick, but she isn't right at the moment. Who was the bloke then? Asks Nick. Not that he's bothered or anything like that. Back at the station, Leanne has agreed to dress up in a toga and a wire and crash Kappa Nike Reeboks spring mixer while figuring out which college punks are dealing in shrooms and avoiding the attentions of the over-amorous Dean. As soon as she gets home, Harvey is instantly at her door demanding to know where she's been and why she wasn't answering her phone.
Where's Nick and Simon? Because they were in that flat. And then all of a sudden they're not in the flat, and they were there waiting for Leanne to get home so they could confront her. And then they disappear? What happened there?
This has happened quite frequently recently.
What happened there?
But it seems that they forget where someone was the last time they were mentioned.
Right. It's like all of a sudden Nick and Simon, who are waiting for Leanne, disappear when Leanne comes home.
And doesn't Harvey have anything else to do other than follow Leanne about?
No, because he's got a thing for Leanne.
Talk about micromanagement. She says that she has a major filing deadline for the lawyer's office, and she always turns off her phone when she has a deadline. He tells her to get her arse out there and get them drugs shifted, or she'll be fetching Simon's body parts out of 8 different skips around Manchester, which was oddly specific. So Leanne is trying to conceal that she's wearing the Aggie outfit as she heads to the tram station, but she's seen by Simon, who's loitering in the community garden, and looks like he's got his following at a discreet distance boots on. It's dark, and Leanne is in a Will part of town. There are sirens in the distance and the clanging of something metal falling over somewhere, and it must be warm for the time of year because she unzips her coat to reveal her Aggie uniform. A shadow moves across her face, and predictably it's Simon, whose following at a discreet distance boots have led him straight to her. You think she's back in the game, and challenges her about it, and why she dressed like a nurse. He realises that this is one of the drop-off points that he had, and large bald men are moving menacingly across the street. She says that she's been looked after. She begs him to go home. She'll explain later. So at home, Leanne is furious that Simon could have blown everything. She explains that she's working with Harvey to clear his debt, and the police are involved now and she's turned informant. That's a fancy word for grass, says Simon. If Harvey finds out, he's going to kill us. And Leanne keeps the 8 Mancunian skips conversation to herself. She's his mum. He's as much of a son to her as Oliver, and while she couldn't protect Oliver, she'll protect him. Simon is scared though.
A little too late there, Leanne.
There are more people involved in this than Harvey, and they're not going to be happy. She tells him that they may have to move away, but she'll protect him, and he says that he'll protect her. It'll be okay, she says, and then she immediately starts crying with worry. And that's how we end this week's episodes. Well, this is escalated.
Oh, what a web we weave.
Well, that was great.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, it's taken an escalation when now she's a stooge as you batter the microphone in fury.
She's an informant. She's working for the cops now to get some. And that never ends well, does it? In movies, it never ends well.
Not for the informant, no.
It always ends badly for the informant, one way or the other.
I don't really get why they couldn't just follow her at a distance. If Simon was able to follow and get to one of the buyers, I don't think that regular protocol requires one of the couriers to wear a wire and all that kind of nonsense.
Maybe
it seems that there's other ways to catch.
They don't have enough for a warrant or something.
They don't have enough evidence. This is what they need, is more evidence.
Yeah. They need to follow her to one of these specific addresses instead of getting like a warrant for one of these addresses.
For a gang that they've been following for some while, and you would imagine have some intelligence on.
Right. Yeah. Who knows? This is just a way to get Leanne killed.
You think so? You think that's where this is heading?
I don't know. It feels like,
but, you know,
it feels like somebody's got to die in this, right?
It does feel like it, that this is becoming such a massive deal that if nobody dies,
right,
or nobody is at least seriously injured,
right,
and Leanne's been seriously injured before by criminals.
Yes.
Remember going back to the Cormac days.
Right, yes. Remember when Nick got back in the show because she got run over by a car.
So she's been seriously injured.
Yes.
And had heart surgery, which I think we keep on forgetting about. So for the same thing to happen again is just running through that story. So either something more has to happen.
She sacrifices her life for her son because they can't kill Simon off because Oliver just died. They can't kill both of her sons off. Can they?
They can. Because people are sitting saying, well, they can't kill both of them off. Then they can. If people are thinking that they can't do something, they absolutely can.
Or is Nick going to accidentally discover something and be collateral damage and be the one that dies? Or David? Because you know he's leaving Sofa Cinema Club.
Who is?
Jack P. Shepherd. He's not going to. Yeah, he's not going to do it next season.
Oh, I've stopped listening to that.
It's going to be the two of them.
Recently.
They're going to have to find a third. Hopefully a woman that they know because reasons. But anyway.
Have you seen the movie Sausage Party? By the way, that was a terrible movie, but the last 5 minutes of it are hilarious.
It was a terrible movie. But now, Seth Rogen is too busy making vases and selling pot. And he's got his own pot company now.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we can buy it here.
We're digressing from our digression.
Seth Rogen's marijuana here in Michigan. What a world.
So why is he leaving? Just he's tired of it or
I don't know.
Too busy?
Who knows? He didn't say. He just said he wasn't doing it next season.
I think he's joking. That sounds like a joke. Anyway. I'm kind of disappointed in how quickly Nick seems to be distancing himself from...
Right, and thinking that Leanne is... But Leanne's been pushing him away for a while now. I can kind of understand this.
With cause or without?
In the beginning with cause, but at this point...
I mean, we're 3 months after the whole Christmas in France debacle.
Yeah, and Nick was there for her throughout the whole thing. She pushed him away. She pushed everyone away.
She did push him away an awful lot, that's true.
There's something's got to give. I can understand that. And this kind of gives him an excuse for something to give because he thinks that she's fooling around with somebody else.
When Nick was looking to come in, I think should have been better just to let that happen. Let him come in. Let him see Harvey. Because there's no way that you see Harvey and you think, well, that's who Leanne's gone after. That's a vicious looking, intimidating looking man.
Well, maybe she's into that now. As opposed to Nick. Who else has Leanne been with? Nick, Steve.
Peter.
Yeah, maybe she's turned a new leaf and she's going for big and bulky and.
Well, she's had Adam
looking.
Ricketts in the past, remember, who wasn't also Nick.
Right.
They're eloping at the moment on a classic Corey.
That's hilarious.
They went to Scotland and Liz Bartleby's like, why would anybody go to Scotland? And I'm like, how dare you, Liz Bartleby?
Shame on you, Les. Shame. People keep going to Scotland.
People do. I don't know why.
They should just make the show in Scotland. Move the whole street there.
That's what High Road was for, and that doesn't exist anymore. It's a wee shame. I think River City still exists.
Mm-hmm. And apparently the BBC may be making a new soap there. Who knows?
Oh,
but nobody's watching soaps
Let's
anymore.
not go over that bit of non-Corey news again. And Simon was very happy about not having to worry about this for a week, and now has to absolutely worry
about it again. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
I just think, I think you're right that siding with the police is rarely met with success, even in James Belushi movies.
No.
And we've all seen one too many of them, let's face it.
Every time in SVU and somebody turns, unless it's like one of those perennial Law and Order SVU, Special Victims Unit. Mm-hmm. That's the one with Ice-T in it.
Why am I disappointed in No, I'm disappointed in Snoop Dogg again. He's in the SpongeBob movie.
Of course he is.
Don't you have enough money, Snoop Dogg?
No.
He's selling fucking Just Eats or whatever.
He's also selling Corona. The beer, not the virus. It's an easy gig. It's a safe gig.
You're selling your soul.
You know, because lots of people, because all of a sudden lots of celebrities have podcasts on iHeartRadio.
Yes,
because it's a safe gig.
I'm still not sure if that Ron Burgundy one's for real or not. Is that Will Ferrell that's doing that? I'm still not sure.
So, did you see Ron Burgundy is running for mayor of Lansing, Michigan?
Okay,
that is a joke. But there are actual yard signs for it.
That was the week that was Coronation Street. A better week this week.
Yes, much better. Much better. Much better.
A few bits and pieces that were fun.
Yes.
And
things that were not fun but were very well done.
And more character driven.
Yes.
And that 8-minute scene was quite remarkable.
Yes.
Is that your moment of the week?
That's the moment of the week. It's got to be the moment of the week.
It's got to be. It's a shame because I kind of felt that the whole
Kelly stuff.
Yeah, I really liked that as well.
Yeah, me too. But we've proved that we have some Imran favoritism on this podcast, so we have to spread the love and the joy. He's got golden retrievers. It's adorable. We got to give it to Fizz.
You're talking about eyes. You talk about eyes. He sees my soul every time he looks. Every time he looks at me, he sees my soul.
Oh God!
And you know what? He forgives me.
So Fizz and Tyrone are our
moment of the week.
Yeah, I hit the right button this time. I knew it was a good mood for some reason when I woke up this morning. Hit the right button. Your boring moment of the week.
Oh.
Wasn't a huge amount that was born.
Burning bacon?
Oh, absolutely. That is our
boring moment of the week.
Another potential moment of the week was Addie and Amy.
Right, yes. Because more of that, please.
And Amy realising that she's in the Matrix.
Addie just makes everything better, doesn't he?
Every time he comes on,
he's a revelation. I love that kid.
I'm sitting up.
Right. I'm like,
this is going to be good.
This is going to be funny. Mm-hmm. The kid's got it.
Right.
The kid's
Come on,
got
kid,
it.
let's see what you got.
The kid's got it, Gav. He's got it. He's got talent. Book him.
If you've ever left your shiny coat in the back of a sofa...
You're going to Broadway, kid!
...and lived to tell the tale, let us know about it. We're the talkofthestreet@gmail.com, which is also our address on Skype for voicemail, and on PayPal if you want to chuck a couple of bucks into our virtual tip jar. We're at Corey Podcast on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And please check out our merch store and YouTube channel, links to which you can find on our Twitter bio or on the other stuff page of the talkofthestreet.podbean.com. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes, and no backsies. No going back into that review and editing it just because it wasn't as good this week. No doing that.
Gav is actually wearing some merch today. He's wearing the Locked in the Bistro with Simon Barlow t-shirt. Because remember when that was a thing?
Which I think I was wearing yesterday. I really need to change this. Or on the podcast provider of your choice. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode. We will be back next week with more
Talk of the Street.
Talk of the Street. Cheerio.
Jazzy.